Our story continues. Chapter 19. There was no word from Mendeln, and certainly none from Achilleos. Odyssean feared for both of them, but could not let their absences hinder him any longer. The Aedirum marched in the direction of Istani. The closer they got to the smaller city, the more Odyssean took precautions, especially when it came to scouting. Not only did he stretch his abilities to their utmost, but for the first time, he dared send out others even farther beyond. They in turn maintained contact with him and those nearest, creating a sweeping field that, besides its main function, Odyssean also hoped would keep any of those who had volunteered from suddenly vanishing or being attacked. With barely a day more to Istani, Odyssean remained tense. The Supreme Temple lay not all that much farther away. He had no doubt that they were already preparing for his coming. The sooner the Aedirum finished with Istani, the better. Cerinthia joined him at the lead.
Should we even stop? I know you've gone back and forth about it since we began moving again, but the main temple is so close.
I know. I've been considering something.
Odyssean finally summoned Rashim to him.
I've a mission for you, if you will accept it.
Of course, Master,
the Hashiri replied. Wincing at the man's willingness to take on what might be a deadly task, Odyssean explained.
I want you to find 4 others and race as quickly as you can toward Knaak.
This startled both Rashim and Cerinthia.
Knaak, Master?
The Hashiri repeated.
Surely, Istani.
No, Knaak. Ride for a full day and keep seeking with your mind as I have shown. I want to know if there's any movement at all from that direction.
Understanding now came to the others.
Ah, yes, Master,
Rashim replied.
I will pick the others and be gone as quickly as the wind.
Rashim, always take care. Return as soon as you can. Don't go any farther.
I will obey, Master.
Cerinthia nodded in approval.
You fear a trap?
They know that we're coming. There could already be an army, or worse, heading toward us from the south. Why else wait until we're pounding at the gates?
She mulled this over for a moment, then answered.
Because they have something even more terrible awaiting us there.
That may very well be the case,
Odyssean agreed.
But I can't take the chance that we're being outflanked.
No, you're right. Rashim is good. If there's anyone coming, he'll definitely alert us, Odyssean.
That's what I hope.
True to his word, Rashim and his chosen set off but minutes later. Odyssean had not allowed the rest of his followers to even slow during that time. The mass of bodies was so great that they stretched for a mile in the jungle, and for the first time, Odyssean formally thought of them as an army too. The term had drifted into and out of his mind over the course of events. But with the confrontation of the Triune close at hand, he decided that he had to treat them as such. Discipline had to be at its utmost. Otherwise, even with the advances made lately by many, including the newest converts, the Aedirum's combined powers might not yet be enough to defeat Lilith and her pawns. Not that Odyssean was all that certain that victory was assured, even if they were. The day wore on. He sensed Rashim now and then, a simple touch from the Hashiri's mind, enough to let Odyssean know that all was well with the scouting party and that nothing had so far been detected. It was very possible that Knaak was entirely ignorant of events. Odyssean certainly hoped so. When evening came and the Aedirum halted, he summoned Saron, Timian, Jonas, and all the others who had some sort of commanding role and re-emphasized the importance of coordinating every aspect of their journey from this point on. For the first time, the children and weaker among them were slowly being ushered to the rear, where a select group of the stronger would assist in protecting them. The rest of the Aedirum were divided under Odyssean's most trusted. Only Sarinthia and he had no one personally under them, they being the only two to coordinate most of the potential action. It still surprised him that the merchant's daughter had become second only to him. This was not a Sarinthia he could have earlier in his life ever imagined knowing. But without her, Odyssean could not have imagined now leading such a vast force. Shortly before daybreak, he awoke to the sense that Rashim was trying to contact him. At first, Odyssean expected to hear the worst, but the Hashiri had only sought to tell them that he and his companions were beginning their return. There had been no hint of danger emerging from Kalinash. The city appeared entirely oblivious to the Adirum's movements. That gave Odyssean tremendous relief. He alerted Sarinthia and the others. Then, as soon as everyone had eaten, he ordered the Adirum on their trek again. And barely 3 hours into the day, they sighted the towers of Istani in the distance. Istani might have been smaller than Hashiri and Toraja, but it still appeared much larger than Partha. Odyssean made an estimate as to the size of the temple based on what he had seen in the previous cities. Not very large, but with the potential to cause enough of a delay to jeopardize their chances of reaching their ultimate destination before Lilith could plot anew. Odyssean decided that there would be no preliminary introduction to the citizenry, as he had done each time in the past. Odyssean would strike directly at the temple the moment he could and pray that he would be able to make the rest of the Istanians understand that he had done it in part for their sakes. Aware that the priests might be scrying for any trouble and certain that the Adirum could not remain entirely hidden, Odyssean sought out the most open path to the city. Speed was essential. Rashim and the others were not back yet, but Odyssean could not wait for them. He had the rest of the Adirum spread out as they neared the thinning jungle. Soon, very soon, the gates of Istani would stand before them. He straightened. For just the slightest of moments, Odyssean could have sworn that he had felt... But no, it had to be his anxiety. It had to be.
Sari,
Odyssean murmured.
Stand next to me and follow my will.
She did not question why, trusting in him as always. Once Sarinthia was ready, Odyssean guided her mind to where he wanted her to focus.
Do you see or sense anything?
He asked.
No. For a moment, I thought... But no.
It was the answer that Odyssean expected, and receiving it only made him more suspicious.
Sari, will you let me try something?
Together, you mean?
She knew about the spell work that Lilith had shown Odyssean while pretending to be her.
If you think it worth a try, then I'll do it.
Rather than position themselves as he and Lilith had, Odyssean simply stood next to Sarinthia. They shut their eyes and concentrated on reaching out to one another. The results were as swift as they were remarkable. The ease with which the two managed to link pleased Odyssean, who had, in truth, feared complete failure. There was only one trouble with the link, and that was the incredible closeness it created between Odyssean and Sarinthia. To prevent any stirring of his feelings, he quickly guided her mind out in the direction he wished to survey. However, even after the two of them completed what he felt a thorough search, Odyssean came away with nothing. He did not even detect what had earlier disturbed him, and he knew neither had Sarinthia. After a few more minutes of futile hunting, Odyssean ceased the effort.
I was wrong.
He muttered.
Merely my imagination.
That's better than another threat, isn't it?
Odyssean nodded.
Just so long as I don't start seeing shadows everywhere. It'll become that much harder to tell when a real danger rears its head.
The Adirum progressed. Odyssean watched as Istani became an actual city, not merely a few structures above the treetops. He drew in his scouts, wanting no one cut off from the rest. That left only Rashim and his party, who he knew would catch up while Odyssean was dealing with the local temple. But, to his surprise, before he and his followers could reach the city gates, a contingent from Istani rode out to meet them. There were 25 in all, most of them guards. A handful of officials, led by a middle-aged, plump figure in rich blue and green silk robes, confronted the son of Diomedes.
Yes, we have come to speak with the leader of this army,
the plump man said. He wore an elaborate silver nose ring that itself was encrusted with tiny rubies. Odyssean strode forward. He did not care that the Istanian, being mounted, had the advantage in terms of eye level. The official would soon learn who truly held the power in this conversation, especially if he sought to protect the Triune.
I'm who you seek,
he told the rider.
I am Odyssean Diomed.
As the official started to speak again, Odyssean raised his hand.
And I have only one thing to say. You and yours have nothing to fear from us. It's only the Triune. Stand out of our way, and the evil truth about them will be revealed soon enough.
The rider fidgeted throughout his speech. Finally, the moment that Odyssean stopped, he blurted,
But that is why we have come to you, Master Odyssean. There is no need to enter Istani. The Triune, they have fled.
As Odyssean stared at the man in disbelief, excited voices broke out among the Adiram.
What do you mean by that?
He demanded.
When?
There was that in Odyssean's tone that evidently cowed the official further. He bent low in the saddle, hastily explaining.
It was but 2 days ago, Master Odyssean. Without word, the priests, the guards, all within the temple, they did vanish during the night. It was noticed by the sentries and the people the next day, and when we went inside to seek the high priest, we found his chamber empty too.
Do you think they're lying?
Murmured Cerinthia, a step behind him. Odyssean did not answer, for he had already begun finding out on his own the answer to that question. He sensed no guile on the part of the Istanians. In fact, they were afraid of angering him with this news. Satisfied as to them, Odyssean then reached out to the city itself, seeking the taint of the Triune. He found traces, but nothing more. The temple was, as the official had insisted, entirely abandoned. Odyssean's mind swept over the 3-towered edifice, searching for any clue, but the priests had been very thorough in clearing out their rooms. Seeking their trail, he located, as in Hashir, a secondary city gate near the temple. There were only a few guards manning it, and it did not take the son of Diomedes much guesswork to assume that those sentries had been mystically blinded to the departure. Once into the jungle, the trail quickly faded, the priests having strived hard to avoid detection. However, what little was evident indicated a route heading directly toward the Supreme Temple. While Odyssean had been doing all this, the Istanians had grown more and more anxious. They could not know what the foreigner was doing, standing there as if asleep. The lead official kept glancing back at his counterparts, likely begging for some advice. However, they remained silent, none wishing to be drawn into the talks. Clearly, if there proved to be any violence, the blame would fall upon the spokesman, who likely had been chosen for this task against his liking. Withdrawing from his search, Odyssean exhaled, then met the first rider's wide-eyed gaze.
You speak the truth.
This brought renewed excitement from the Adiram. Their master's enemies were running scared. Victory was surely at hand. Odyssean dared not get his hopes up. Still, this reprieve meant that less time would be lost in this area. If they left in the morning, they could reach the Supreme Temple 2 days earlier than planned.
You speak the truth,
he repeated.
And so, there remains only one thing for us before we leave your domain.
The Istani leaders all looked sick. They no doubt expected either some reprisal or some great demand for riches.
We've need of some food and fresh water. In addition, we must make camp nearby. Any of your people are welcome to trade with us, to learn about us.
Because of the shortness of time, Odyssean could not enter Istani and preach to the locals. That would come later, supposing that he survived his confrontation with Lilith. A hint of relief spread through the locals. The lead official nodded several times.
Food and water can be provided, yes, Master Odyssean. There are those who will trade with you also, yes.
He leaned back.
Barenji, see to it, yes?
One of the other officials nodded once, then turned his horse around and rode off as if on fire. Odyssean indicated his gratitude.
That's all then. If any of you have any other questions, I'll answer them. If not, then I wish the wise people of Istani good health and thank them for their efforts.
It was not exactly the formal greeting that he had learned for Hashir, but it was satisfactory. With many bows, the contingent turned and rode back to the city.
Can they be trusted with their food and water?
Asked Timian.
They may seek to poison it.
That was highly doubtful to Odyssean, but he had already considered what to do.
Nothing will be distributed until I've looked it over.
His answer was, of course, enough to satisfy the others. They had full trust in him, which Odyssean appreciated. He prayed that he would not let them down. With the guidance of those among the Adiram who understood the territory best, Odyssean chose a place to camp for the night. Even before his followers had settled down, the Istani began to bring foodstuff for them. The articles came in wagons drawn by both oxen and more of the huge beasts used in the lowlands. Sarin called them Pakishon, which meant long-nosed brothers. The Pakishon made delivering the food a quicker operation, for they used their flexible snouts to reach baskets down to where Odyssean waited. Once he made certain that there was no poison or other threat, Sarin, Timian, and the others began passing the supplies around. The Istanians treated them with the utmost regard, almost falling over themselves to please. Odyssean did not expect any of the locals to come to hear about the Adiram, but a large handful did. He welcomed them and spoke to all as he had times previous. Some of the Istani departed after his speech, but more stayed. To the latter, Odyssean offered to reveal their own gifts. This time, he did one other thing as he stirred the latent powers to life. Within each, Odyssean sought out as best he could any kernel of darkness that he could find and crushed it utterly. There would be no repeat of Lilith's foul work with Romus and the other unfortunates. And then, before he knew it, the sun had risen again. There was indeed no more reason for staying. From the officials who obviously wanted to do their best to see the intruders depart as quickly and peacefully as possible, he received updated information on the path leading to the Triune's supreme temple. A couple of the newest converts verified the charts and directions. Odyssean thanked his reluctant hosts, then led his army on again. And now, there were no more distractions. Only their goal lay ahead. Rashim and the other scouts were closer than before, but, as Odyssean had realized, the swift departure from Istani meant that they were now a day or two again from reuniting with the rest. With Lilith just ahead, Odyssean could not focus on the small band constantly. Instead, he sought out the scouts during each pause. Satisfied that they were still all right, he then returned to constantly attempting to analyze just what the demoness might have in store. But although he thought of 1,000 nightmares, Odyssean doubted any of them would match her true plan. The Adiram moved on through the jungle, becoming quieter as they ate away at the miles. It was as if a shroud had fallen over them. For the first time, they became aware of the monumental task quickly approaching. And then something touched Odyssean's very soul, a gnawing darkness that grew with each step.
We're close.
He finally muttered to Cerinthia.
We're so close.
She only nodded. Odyssean doubled his precautions. For him, the Triune was no longer hiding what it was. They, under Lilith's guidance, were trying to undermine the Adirum's confidence. Odyssean's mind swept over his followers, reassuring them of their intentions. This new and subtle ploy would fail his enemies. Of that he swore. He wished that Mendon and Achilleos were with him. That he had seen nothing of either bothered Odyssean, for surely at least his brother would have tried to be there. As for the archer, it was possible that Achilleos was nearby, but if so, why had he not at least given some sign? Odyssean decided that he could not rely on their assistance. It was up to him and those who stood with him to survive this struggle. Night came again, the last night, by his calculation, before they would sight the lands surrounding their target. Somewhere to the northeast, so he was told by one of the Hashiri, stood the vast capital. As Odyssean sat down by one of the low fires, he marveled that its masters outwardly appeared oblivious or unconcerned about the struggle going on. Odyssean knew that such could not be the case, that they were actually keeping avid watch to see if the victor in this conflict would then be vulnerable.
So much blood. It won't end here. It'll go on, and on, and on.
He wondered if he should just seek out the angel Inarius and ask him to start the world all over. Maybe that was the best course after all. Odyssean shook like a dog, trying to jar loose such vile thoughts. He felt ashamed for having even wildly considered them. Cerinthia joined him by the fire.
Are you all right?
No,
He returned bluntly.
but that never matters.
She was taken aback by his reply.
Odyssean,
Forgive me, Sari. It's nothing. It'll pass.
Odyssean leapt to his feet. Once more, he had that sense that there was something not quite right in the vicinity. He turned in a circle, studying each direction carefully. Back along their trail, Odyssean almost thought that he noticed something, but then did not. Coming to his side, Cerinthia asked,
what's wrong? What happened?
He did not answer. Instead, considering the facts, they were within striking distance of the main temple. The Triune certainly had to know that their arrival was imminent, and that there would be no negotiation. Lilith wanted this confrontation. The Triune had even entirely abandoned Istani, where he would have expected that Lilith would have at least forced him to spill more blood before reaching her. She still wanted the Adirum. That was also a fact. Odyssean and his followers would face no ordinary battle. Lilith would have something particular in mind. Once more, he checked the region surrounding them. Yet again, there was nothing. But what if nothing was more than it seemed?
Sari, the others need to be alert. Please tell them to be prepared for my command.
For what?
I don't know.
She asked no more questions, instead turning to silently spread the word. As Cerinthia reached out to the others, Odyssean concentrated on the general area where he had momentarily believed that he had sensed a presence. There had to be something wrong. There had to be a reason for his wariness. It was more than merely nerves. He focused hard, trying to draw his will into the task as much as possible. This time, Odyssean could not simply give up. He had to keep searching, even if it took him all night. Perhaps that was what Lilith wanted. Perhaps she desired Odyssean so exhausted that he would make crucial mistakes. Maybe all he sought out beyond the camp was one of her illusions. No, it has to be more. Odyssean sweated as he pushed himself harder. There was something out there, something worth much effort in hiding. And suddenly, it was all there to see. As if a vast blanket swept back by a powerful wind, the truth revealed itself in one rapid layer after another. Through his mind, Odyssean saw a row of familiar armed figures slowly but relentlessly wending their way toward the encampment through the thick underbrush. Behind them materialized another row, and another, and another, and on until it became clear that an army had been secreted from him. Peace Warders. The Triune soldiers were not alone either. Odyssean noted priests among them, priests of all three orders. They were the ones casting the elaborate cloaking spell, but he sensed Lilith's hand in its making. Such a casting was far too advanced, even for these senior acolytes. So at last, the truth about Istani was known. Lilith had arranged their vanishing, only to have them, and surely warriors of Kalinash, and perhaps even the Supreme Temple, gather nearby. While Odyssean's concentration had been upon the enemy ahead, even with his attempts to sweep the trail behind the Adiram, they had followed, awaiting the moment to strike. That moment, it appeared, was to be tonight.
Sarinthia.
Odyssean silently called. She answered with a questioning note. He quickly filled her in, but as he did, the son of Diomedes discovered that he had erred. Within the invisible ranks, a priest's mind abruptly closed itself from him. Instantly, the entire army vanished from Odyssean's second sight. He had just enough of a last glimpse to see the Peace Warders pick up their pace. They had noticed him. The attack was coming.
The enemy is behind us,
he told not just Sarinthia, but everyone.
Behind us. Ready yourselves.
It should have made absolute sense to Odyssean that Lilith would send her forces against him at night, not daylight, when most would attack. Worse was the veil of invisibility that added to the darkness. The Adiram could defeat this foe, but they would need to be able to see them in some manner. Or did they? Odyssean knew the approximate location of the Peace Warders. That, in truth, was enough with which to start. He had no time to summon the aid of others. Odyssean clapped his hands together. As he had done once before, what sounded like thunder rolled forward. This thunder, though, was a sound wave so powerful that it tore the nearest trees from their roots and sent leaves and vines scattering. It also, he knew, even without seeing, struck the first ranks of the Peace Warders with equal force. Once again, the blanket blew back. The Triune's minions were revealed to him. The first row lay completely scattered, the two behind it in various levels of disarray. Yet, those farther back, those who had not fallen, only looked more determined, more ready to spill the blood of their master's enemies. Charging past the fallen, the temple's servants waved their weapons, but they would find themselves a foe more than ready for them now. He felt Sarinthia, Timian, and the other commanders of his army letting him know that those in their charge merely awaited his word. However, just as Odyssean was about to give orders, he felt another presence. Rashim's distant mind reached out to him, the Hashiri's thoughts desperate.
"Beware, master,"
Rashim called.
"Beware! They march from the main temple. Look ahead."
With the Peace Warders almost upon them, Odyssean dared not take the time to question Rashim further. Instead, he tore his thoughts from the oncoming attackers to the direction in which the Adiram had been marching, the direction in which lay the Supreme Temple and Lilith. There, he saw with dread that the Hashiri had been speaking the truth. Like those who had followed the Adiram, these too had been expertly hidden from even his sight until now. There was another army, several times larger than that they were about to face, sweeping toward them, an army composed of many Peace Warders and priests, yes, but also something more terrible. Morlu. Hundreds and hundreds of Morlu.